Happy Labor Day, everybody. Isn't it kind of funny that we celebrate labor, that is work, by taking a day off? Well, maybe it's not so funny because Labor Day marks the unofficial end of summer and the beginning of the fall season, which for a lot of us means more work. If they're not already, soon all the kids will be back in school, and fall sports and other activities will be underway. At Ascension, we think of the weekend after Labor Day as being the beginning of our ministry year. So next week, faith formation will begin for our kids, and we're going to start a new message series called Get in the Game. Through the lens of the gospel, we're going to talk about what it means to take our faith seriously and why we cannot simply sit on the sidelines. Throughout the series, we're going to share practical things that will help you get out of the grandstand, off of the bench, and into the game, and what you get when you do. If you're looking for a good time to invite a family member or a friend to Mass, next week will be the great time for that. Also, next week at the 9 a.m. Mass in particular, we're going to anticipate heavier than usual crowds. And I always encourage this, but I'm just going to say it especially for next week. Next week, I encourage you to push your way to the front of the church. There's no shame in sitting in the front pews. And then once you've pushed your way to the front of the church, always squeeze into the middle so that we can make more room for our friends. When I was growing up, my father said to me, and maybe someone said this to you, if you do something you love, then you'll never have to work a day in your life. Well, you know something? That's not true. I'm doing exactly what I love, and it's hard. I mean, I have to work one whole day a week. In case you've ever wondered what a day in the life of a priest is like, let me just give you a brief overview. Typically, I get up around 4, I say all of my prayers, then I celebrate Mass, and about that time, it's dinner. That's not quite true. But if we love something, we want to do it well. And just because you love something doesn't mean there isn't a cost of blood, sweat, and tears. While I love what I do, at least most of the time, maybe for you, it's the opposite. Maybe it's hard for you to see the meaning and the purpose of what you do. Maybe you don't enjoy what you're doing, and maybe you don't even enjoy who you're doing it with. Regardless of whether you like your work or not, all honest work has both meaning and dignity. The book of Genesis shows us that God's first work was to create. And the first verse of the Bible says that after creation, the earth was a formless wasteland and darkness covered the abyss. Since we can't create things out of nothing like God, what God does next is very important for us because it shows us how we can participate in God's work of creation. First, God separated the light from the darkness. God separated the sky above from the earth below. And God separated the earth from the sea. Put another way, a big part of God's creation is putting disorder into order. Putting disorder into order. And we participate in God's work of creation when we put disorder into order too. You know, we see this when scientists bring to us a greater understanding of how God's creation works. Think of the order that's in the periodic table of elements. Or we see this when when parents raise children and little unwieldy babies become fully grown and mature adults. And we also put disorder into order when we do little things like put away the dishes or make our beds. Sometimes, though, it's not easy to see how our work is a participation in God's work of creation. And when we can't, sometimes we work so that we can provide for the needs of ourselves as well as the people we care about. What your work is, though, to God isn't the most important thing, because it matters little to God whether you are a doctor, a stay-at-home mom, a CEO of a large company, a teacher, a student, or even a priest. What matters to God is how we do it. Do we strive to do it well? Do we try to put our heart into our work? Because for all of us, no matter our occupation, work is a means by which we can sanctify ourselves, serve others, and honor God by participating in His work of creation. In our gospel today, Jesus shares with us two things we need to understand if we are to grasp the meaning of work. And to set the stage, this part of the gospel, it's a sort of a turning point in Jesus' public ministry, because here, for the first time, Jesus tells his disciples that to accomplish his mission, he is going to be killed in Jerusalem and then be raised from the dead. The disciples, however, don't seem to hear the resurrection part. Peter, and I think this is understandable, he tries to tell Jesus that it doesn't need to happen like that. And then we heard Jesus respond forcefully, "Get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle to me. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." When I read this line at the Mass yesterday during the gospel, I said, "Get behind me, Satan," I saw a couple of people's heads shoot up. But here's the important thing. Thinking as God does puts everything into our lives in the right perspective. Thinking as God does puts everything in our lives into the right perspective. It puts disorder into order. And a simple question that we can ask ourselves, or a simple question we can ask God in prayer as we go about our work, is this: am I doing what you want me to be doing as you want me to be doing it? Am I doing what you want me to be doing as you want me to be doing it? Or when we think we're doing the right things, but they don't seem to be going well, we could ask God, what are you trying to teach me through this? So many of our troubles are multiplied because we don't see our work or our circumstances as God sees them. And that is opportunities for us to grow or to give in some way. The gospel scene culminates with Jesus sharing the three conditions of discipleship. Jesus says, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Friends, to follow Jesus, we need to say no to ourselves, and sometimes we need to do things that we don't want to do. We don't simply say no to ourselves for the self-denial. We say no so that we can be made ready for a bigger yes. I mean, think of this with something simple, like if I say no to myself and don't snack on potato chips, well, then I'm going to say I have a bigger yes when it comes time to enjoy my nice dinner, for instance. And sometimes you might say no to yourself so that others can have something. I'm thinking of maybe the many sacrifices that parents make, maybe when they give up sleep so that they can better provide or care for their families. Work is often difficult. But if we say no to ourselves, if we see things as God sees them, then our work, whatever it is, will have meaning and purpose, and we'll participate in God's work of creation by putting disorder into order. And we should strive to do it all for God's glory, because as Jesus concluded the gospel, he said this: For the Son of Man will come with his angels in his Father's glory, and then he will repay all according to their conduct.